What if I told you that the Hollywood star you admire most didn't rise because of talent, but because of money? Not their own money, not the studios, but something darker, deeper, and far more strategic. What if you learned that behind every blockbuster actor, viral performance, or overnight sensation, there's a quiet signature from an entity you've never voted for, never questioned, but that shapes what you see, believe, and even desire? Most people think Hollywood is built on charisma, timing, and a bit of luck. But today, you're going to see a side of fame that was never meant to be public. You're going to discover how the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, has positioned itself not just in finance, not just in real estate, but in the beating heart of global culture, the entertainment industry. They don't appear in the trailers. You won't see their logo at the Oscars. But they're there, buried in investment portfolios, strategic acquisitions, and shadow boardrooms, silently influencing who becomes a star and who disappears without a trace. This isn't just a theory. It's a pattern backed by shareholder records, corporate filings, and the trail of money flowing between BlackRock and the entertainment titans it quietly controls. From Disney and Warner Brothers to music labels and digital platforms, their influence runs deeper than you've ever imagined. And the most disturbing part? You were never meant to notice. What you see on screen is no longer just art or creativity. It's an algorithm guided by market interest, audience behavior data, and yes, investment leverage. Actors are assets. Stories are structured to align with economic trends. Fame is engineered, and the cultural icons you think you discovered, they were delivered to you, pre-approved, pre-funded, and perfectly polished. Now ask yourself, why do certain artists get infinite exposure while others vanish overnight? Why do some messages get amplified while others are mysteriously censored or ignored? What's really driving that organic rise to stardom? The answer, increasingly, is BlackRock. And here's where it gets personal. The content you consume shapes your worldview, your values, your opinions. If those are being sculpted by corporate investment strategies instead of authentic human voices, are your thoughts truly yours? If this video was recommended to you, it's not by chance. It means you're one of the few still questioning what others blindly accept. So before we go deeper, take a second, not for me, but for the truth, and click like right now. This story needs to be seen, not for clicks, but because they've worked very hard to keep it buried. Let's dig it up. Let's talk about the faces you know, the ones you see everywhere, on your screen, in your feed, on the cover of streaming platforms, Billboard charts, red carpets, Taylor Swift, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Zendaya, Timothée Chalamet, Billie Eilish, Bad Bunny. The list changes, the names rotate, but the formula never does. To the average viewer, these people became famous through talent, hard work, maybe some luck. But in truth, every one of them is the end product of a massive cultural machine. A machine powered not by passion, but by money, by corporate strategy, by financial forecasting. And behind many of those financial pipelines is BlackRock. Take a look at the studios. Universal Pictures, Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount Global, Disney, Netflix. Most viewers don't realize that BlackRock holds significant stakes in nearly all of them, often in conjunction with Vanguard or State Street. On paper, it's just investing. In practice, it's influence. Silent influence. They don't greenlight the scripts. They fund the companies that do. They don't direct the scenes. They approve the balance sheets that shape what gets made, what gets marketed, and what gets erased. Let's go deeper. Do you remember when Taylor Swift began re-recording her albums and taking a stand for artist control? It was sold to the public as rebellion. But very few noticed that the buyers of her original masters were linked to private equity firms with direct investment ties to BlackRock. While the narrative looked empowering, the money kept moving in the same direction. Or take Dwayne Johnson, one of the highest paid actors in the world, brand-friendly, audience-tested, and hyper-bankable. He's not just an actor, he's a corporation in human form. And his name appears in projects backed by studios with direct ownership ties to BlackRock and Vanguard. Coincidence? Or portfolio optimization? This isn't about conspiracy, it's about structure. These stars aren't puppets, but their fame isn't organic either. It's curated, engineered to fit what investors believe the market wants, to reinforce values that align with financial trends, to maximize return, influence perception, and, if necessary, redirect public opinion. Because fame today isn't just entertainment, it's an asset class. The system doesn't attack individuality, it absorbs it. It polishes, packages, and projects the version of the artist that's safest to sell, most aligned with advertiser values, and least threatening to long-term market positions. That's why so many new artists seem strangely familiar. Why every campaign feels algorithmically perfect. Why dissenting voices quietly disappear. And that's why this video isn't about them. It's about who profits from their rise. It's about the invisible influence of firms like BlackRock, who no longer need to buy media headlines, because they already own the media structures, who don't need to censor stories, because they simply don't fund the ones that challenge the narrative. Let that sink in. The next time you see a breakout star, ask yourself, are you witnessing raw talent or a market-tested product launched with precision funding? This is how control works today, not through censorship, but through saturation. And once you understand that, you'll start to see who's missing: the artists, directors, and voices that never got their shot. The ones that didn't fail, they just didn't fit the algorithm. Or worse, they challenged it. Because now that you've seen who they choose, let's follow the money and see exactly how they do it. Let's move from theory to evidence. Because this isn't just a pattern, it's documented. In filings, contracts, acquisitions, and shareholder reports so public, most people never even think to look. Let's start with BlackRock's position in the entertainment sector. As of recent disclosures, BlackRock is among the top institutional shareholders in the Walt Disney Company, Comcast, which owns NBC Universal, Paramount Global, and Warner Bros. Discovery. These four corporations collectively own most of what the average American watches, from TV shows and streaming platforms to blockbuster films and national news. Through index funds and ETF portfolios, BlackRock doesn't just invest, it votes. As a major shareholder, it influences corporate decisions, including executive appointments, board approvals, strategic mergers, and yes, content direction. It doesn't need to dictate scripts. It influences what gets greenlit, what gets marketed, and how resources are distributed. And this isn't a fringe opinion. In 2022, BlackRock controlled an estimated $10 trillion in assets under management, making it one of the most powerful financial entities on the planet. Even partial ownership of multiple entertainment conglomerates gives it unprecedented cultural leverage. We're talking about influence that surpasses traditional media empires and does so silently. Let's trace a practical example. In 2019, Disney completed its $71 billion acquisition of 21st Century Fox, who were among the top shareholders pushing the deal forward. BlackRock and Vanguard, the same investors that held significant stakes in both companies, profiting no matter the outcome and consolidating even more media content under fewer corporate umbrellas. This creates what's known in economic terms as an oligopoly, a structure where a small number of large firms dominate a market. In this case, culture is the market, and artists, creators, journalists, and even ideas are all subject to the financial interests of those firms. But let's go deeper. Take a look at Endeavor Group Holdings, one of the most powerful talent management companies in the world. They represent actors, athletes, models, and influencers. When Endeavor went public, one of its major institutional investors was, you guessed it, BlackRock. That means the same firm investing in the studios is also investing in the talent pipeline itself. In practical terms, the funder of your favorite actor's agency may also be the funder of the studio casting that actor. This isn't coincidence. This is vertical integration. It's what gives conglomerates an unfair advantage, controlling production, distribution, and labor all at once. In entertainment, that means they choose the face, create the project, control the platform, and collect the profits, all under the same investment umbrella. Why does this matter? Because when the same financial institutions are embedded across every layer of influence, from the boardroom to the billboard, true cultural diversity becomes impossible. Every project, artist, or movement that doesn't fit the economic blueprint is deprioritized, defunded, or algorithmically buried. Now pause for a moment. Think of how many times you've seen the same stars in unrelated projects, the same breakout artists across completely different platforms, the same cultural trends echoed in every ad, show, and influencer collab. That's not momentum. That's design. And if you're still watching, you're probably starting to feel it. That creeping realization that fame might not be earned anymore. It's a sign that some artists don't go viral because they're resonating, they go viral because they were funded to. This doesn't mean these celebrities aren't talented. Many are, but it raises the bigger, darker question. Would they still be stars if the financial engine behind them disappeared? And if you think this is uncomfortable to hear, imagine what it feels like to be an independent artist, competing against a machine with billion-dollar backing, narrative control, and engineered virality. That's not a stage, that's a battleground. Now here's the part where I don't ask for likes, shares, or comments. Not directly, because if you've reached this point, you already know this video is too real to be ignored. You know it deserves to be seen, not because it's polished, but because it's buried truth. So if this hit you, if this opens something inside you, do what they don't expect. Send this to one person who needs to question what they see. Just one. That's how control breaks. Quietly, patiently, powerfully. But this isn't just about studios and artists. It's about something far bigger. Because once you see who else is connected to these entertainment giants, you'll understand this was never just about movies. What you've seen so far is disturbing. But what's even more dangerous is this. It's not just one star, one studio, or one isolated deal. This system is everywhere. It's the new language of fame. And once you know how to read it, you start seeing the pattern. Let's move beyond Hollywood for a moment. Look at the music industry. BlackRock and Vanguard both hold major stakes in Universal Music Group, Sony Music, and Warner Music Group, the big three that control nearly 70% of the global music catalog. That means the same firms deciding who gets funding in film are also influencing what artists get playlists, marketing pushes, and industry protection. Take Billie Eilish. She rose seemingly overnight, with a unique sound and aesthetic. But behind her launch was a web of investments, label power from Interscope, part of Universal, and streaming partnerships that ensured algorithmic dominance. Talent? Yes, but also funding, forecasting, and full system synchronization. Or The Weeknd, who signed a multi-year deal with Universal worth tens of millions. His Super Bowl halftime show wasn't just a performance. It was a corporate portfolio play. Every element, from visuals to distribution, passed through entities backed by overlapping investors. These aren't just concerts, they're assets being activated. Now shift back to the screen. Stranger Things, one of Netflix's most profitable franchises. Its cast became global celebrities almost instantly. But few realize that Netflix itself has BlackRock as one of its major institutional stakeholders. That means your binge watch isn't just entertainment, it's shareholder strategy. And the actors you associate with authenticity? Chosen, elevated, and distributed via platforms backed by identical financial interests. And what about Disney's endless live-action remakes? These aren't about creativity. They're about risk mitigation, recycling known IPs with guaranteed market traction. And who gains from this predictability? The institutional investors who prefer consistency over artistic risk. Once again, BlackRock, even award shows, once seen as cultural milestones, are now predictable rollouts of pre-positioned assets. Think about how often the same actors appear across different brands, causes, networks. Think about how quickly narratives shift, how fast public opinion is corrected, how few questions get asked when something doesn't make sense. Because it's not just fame anymore, it's infrastructure. What you're witnessing is the financialization of identity, where your emotions, preferences, and trends are reverse engineered from data and delivered through carefully selected faces. This isn't about being paranoid. It's about being aware. Because when culture is curated by corporate portfolios, the idea of organic success becomes a fantasy. What looks spontaneous was modeled. What feels authentic was optimized. And if you're the kind of person who sees that, who can feel that something's off, even when everyone else is applauding, then you're exactly the kind of mind this channel was built for. So take a second, right now, not out of habit, but because if you made it this far, it means you're not like most people. Click that subscribe button, not just to support this video, but to make sure this kind of content doesn't disappear into the algorithm. You see, they have the money, but we have the pattern. And if more people recognize it, the illusion breaks. And here's the most ironic part. Even this video, right now, is being filtered by the very platforms that serve those same interests. Will it be buried, or will it rise because people like you chose to share it? That's the decision they don't control. But if you think the influence stops at movies and music, you haven't seen what happens when this machine reaches into your personal life. Your choices, your opinions, and what you think is yours. This is the part where it gets personal. Because it's not just about celebrities. It's not just about who gets cast in a movie or wins a Grammy. It's about you, and how what you believe might not be yours anymore. You see, when financial giants like BlackRock decide who gets famous, who gets funded, and which stories get told, they're not just shaping entertainment. They're shaping culture. And culture, whether you realize it or not, is the software that runs your perception of the world. Think about it. The content you consume every day, music, movies, podcasts, interviews, memes, TikToks, isn't just entertainment. It's information input. It sets your emotional tone. It builds your values. It makes you trust some voices and doubt others. It tells you what's normal, what's cool, what's dangerous, and what's acceptable. Now imagine that flow of content being intentionally filtered, funded, and formatted by the same handful of firms. It doesn't look like censorship because the other side was never given a stage. It doesn't look like control because you feel like you made the choice. But that's the most effective kind of manipulation, the one that feels like freedom. When you hear the same message echoed across music videos, interviews, films, award shows, influencer campaigns, and brand commercials, that's not cultural momentum. That's engineered consensus. And engineered consensus is the most powerful form of control because it doesn't need to argue. It just needs to surround you. This is where psychological engineering enters the frame. When you see a celebrity speaking on a cause, it feels organic. But what if their contract required them to support it? When your favorite artist goes viral with a certain theme, was it personal expression or a marketing blueprint? When a show suddenly shifts political tones mid-season, is it storytelling or boardroom compliance? You might think that doesn't affect me, but ask yourself this. When was the last time you changed your mind? And was it really your idea? Was it a headline? A character's monologue? A tweet from someone you admire? Who funded that voice? Because that's how narrative control works. Not by silencing you, but by flooding you with voices that echo what they want you to believe. That's why this isn't about celebrity gossip. This is about your autonomy. The slow erosion of your ability to think independently while believing you're more informed than ever. And here's the truly terrifying part. Most people will never notice. They'll laugh. They'll scroll. They'll say, it's just music. It's just a movie. But culture doesn't ask permission. It doesn't knock on your door. It seeps in through the back of your mind. And if you're not guarding it, someone else is programming it. This is the game behind the glamour. This is why fame is no longer a mirror, but a mask. And why every celebrity, every show, every viral moment must now be examined not by what it says, but by who funds it. So ask yourself, if BlackRock, a financial entity with no cultural roots, no moral compass, and no accountability, is shaping the icons you admire, what part of your identity is truly yours? You're here because you noticed something. A feeling, a pattern, a silence that didn't make sense. So if what you've heard so far makes you question the world around you, stay with me. Because the next part of this story is what brings it full circle. Because now that you understand how this machine influences your mind, you need to see how they use hope, crisis, and emotion to tighten their grip. So now you know. You've followed the trail from the studios to the stages, from the headlines to the hidden hands. You've seen how BlackRock, through silent ownership, invisible votes, and trillion-dollar portfolios, doesn't just influence what you see, It curates the very structure of fame. But this is where it gets truly disturbing. Because when corporations like BlackRock control the stars, they're not just manipulating media, they're rewriting the meaning of influence. Fame used to be a mirror, reflecting back talent, courage, originality. Today, it's a spotlight, pointing exactly where investors want you to look. And what happens when enough people stare in the same direction for long enough? They stop asking what's behind them. They stop noticing what's being hidden. So here's the question no one wants you to ask. If BlackRock decides who becomes famous, who decides what you believe? Think about that, because it doesn't end with celebrities. If the faces you trust are chosen, if the stories you cry over are pre-approved, if the outrage you feel is algorithmically placed in your path, then how much of your identity is truly yours? If fame is fabricated, if narrative is managed, if influence is industrialized, what does that leave you? You might still think you're making choices, but ask yourself, how many of your thoughts were built on voices you didn't choose? On images someone paid to place? On values you absorbed from songs, shows, scripts, all selected by firms whose only mission is return on investment? This isn't just manipulation. This is engineering of opinion, of culture, of consent. The most dangerous kind of control doesn't chain your hands. It whispers in your ear and convinces you the voice is your own. And now that you've seen it, now that you've felt it, what will you do? You see, this was never just a video about BlackRock. It's about the systems you were never meant to question. Because if you pull one thread, the whole fabric starts to shift. If corporations control the artists, who's controlling the audience? And if they own the spotlight, what are they trying to keep you from seeing? The questions don't end here. They start here. If you're still watching, it means you're not afraid to look deeper. So here's your invitation. Leave a comment. Not just with your opinion, but with your question. Because the more we ask, the less control they have. Some people will click away from this video and forget it ever existed. They'll go back to the feed, back to the trends, back to the world that's been built for them, not by them. But you didn't click away. You stayed. You watched. You questioned. That means something. Because the truth is, the world isn't short on noise. It's short on people who see through it. And if you're one of those people, you need to be part of what comes next. This isn't a one-time revelation. This is the surface of something deeper, a network of influence that reaches far beyond Hollywood, deeper than entertainment. The people who built this system are counting on your silence. But silence is a choice. So choose to stay awake. Hit the subscribe button right now. Not for numbers, not for vanity, but because this space, this channel, is one of the few places left where we go beyond the surface. Where questions matter more than narratives. And where nothing is taken at face value. And if you're still hungry for the next layer of truth, watch the video that just appeared on your screen. It connects everything we've uncovered here to something even more disturbing. Something they'll do anything to keep out of the light. The algorithm is already trying to bury it. Don't let it win.